We've done one-step inequalities, and we've done multi-step equations before, but this is going to focus on multi-step inequalities. But there will be some equations mixed in. So here are the steps. And as you work on the homework and as you study for a quiz and a test, you should come back and refer to these steps. I tried to underline the main point of each step to try to make it a little easier to remember. So if one side of the equation is a big fraction, your first step should be to multiply both sides by its denominator. Now I want to make sure you understand what I mean by big fraction. Number 2 here does have a fraction, but that's not what I'm referring to when I say a big fraction, because that fraction is just one piece of this side of the equation. It's not the whole side. Whereas on the back, you can see I have two examples here, 9 and 10, where the entire side of the equation is a fraction. The entire side of this side of the inequality is a fraction. So it's when you have a big fraction like that that takes up a whole side that your first step is to multiply both sides by the denominator. So in this case, -3, in this case, +3. Okay, step 2, if you can distribute, do it. You'll see that down here in 3 and 4, we've got some parentheses with a number out front, so that tells us we need to distribute. Step 3, if there are variables on both sides, combine them. So we see that again in 3 and 4. 1 and 2, there's just a variable on one side. But 3 and 4 have variables on both sides of the equations, so you'll need to combine the variables. Then you'll do the constants. Move the constant away from the term with the variable. I'll talk about that more in number 1, like this number 1. And then you'll divide or multiply both sides by a number to get the variable by itself. So getting these in your brain, even if you just remember big fraction, distribute, variables on both sides, constants, divide or multiply. That should be a lot easier to put in your brain than all these many words. But you won't do all 5 of these steps most likely, but you'll need to check all of them as you do each one. So in number 1, for example, I say, okay, definitely no big fraction, no fraction at all. Can't distribute on this one, there's no parentheses. There's also not any variables on both sides. So while we need to check steps 1 through 3, it's not step 4 until we actually do anything. So this says add or subtract any constants away from the term of the variable. Now here's the why it's worded this way. As we look at this, we have 3 numbers that show up in this equation. A 3, a 6, and a 12. The 3 is a coefficient because it's multiplied by the variable. That makes it a coefficient. The D is not connected to a variable. The 6 is not connected to a variable. Neither is the 12. So these are both constants. But to solve this problem the quickest way, we don't want to move the 12 over. We want to move the 6 over because we're trying to get the D by itself. Getting the variable by itself is how we solve this. So this is why I say move the constants away from the term of the variable. So this is the term of the variable. We want to move this constant that's on the same side it's on away from it. So they're adding 6. We do the opposite and we subtract 6 from both sides. Then it says we divide or multiply by a number to get the variable by itself. So this is 3 times d. The opposite of times is divide, so we'll divide both sides by 3. That gives us d equals 2. Now as we do number 2, we can check steps 1, 2, and 3. There's no big fraction, that's a little fraction. Can't distribute, there's no parentheses. And there's not variables on both sides. So we check 1 through 3, nothing there. So we go straight to the part about the constant. So the constant needs to be moved away from the term with the variable. This is the term with the variable. We need to move this constant away from it. They're adding 3, so we will subtract 3 from both sides. 6 minus 3 is 3. Okay, now they're dividing x by -8. That's what a fraction means. That's x divided by -8. So we need to multiply both sides by -8. -8 divided by -8 is 1, so they cancel out. 3 times -8 is -24. I know you can't see the steps anymore, but we'll still talk through them each time. So on number 3, there's no big fraction, but we can distribute. 6 times 3m is 18m. 6 times 3 is 18. And we then ask, step 3, if the variables are on both sides. There are variables on both sides. Now here you do have a choice. You can choose to subtract 12m from both sides to move that one, move the 12m over there, or subtract 18 from both sides to move it over there. That's truly just your preference. Doesn't matter. I'm going to subtract 18m from both sides. There's nothing better or worse about that. It's just a choice. So these get canceled out. 12 minus 18 is negative 6. And then we get to step 4, which is move the constant away from the term of the variable. So it's this 12 we want to move. So they're adding 12. We do the opposite. We subtract 12 from both sides. 18 minus 12 is 6. And our last step is to get rid of this coefficient. That's negative 6 times m. So I do the opposite of times, and I divide both sides by negative 6. So we get m equals negative 1. Okay, 4 is very similar. There's no big fraction, so we skip step 1. But we can distribute, so we do that. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 5 is 20. Step 3, we do have variables on both sides, so we need to combine them. Just for variety, I'm going to choose to move this left side over first. So I'm choosing to subtract the 4x. 4x minus 4x is 0, so that cancels out. 6x minus 4x is 2x plus the 12. Step 4 is to move the constant away from the term of the variable. That's this constant over here. They're adding 12, so I need to subtract 12 from both sides. That gives me 8 equals 2x. Then we divide both sides by 2, because they're doing 2 times x, so I do the opposite of times, and I divide. I get 4 equals x. Okay, we'll get back to those in a second, but first, in number 5, we need to write the inequality before we solve it. So, Maria's parents have budgeted $575 for her quinceañera celebration. In case you don't know, in Hispanic culture, a girl's 15th birthday is considered a big transition in her life, and so it's a time they do a big special party. It's her 15th birthday. That's what the quinceañera is. The cost of the party room is $75. So let me back up. They budgeted $575. So they want to make sure they spend less than or equal to $575. Because their budget says $575, no more. So they want it to be less than or equal to $575. So to rent the party room, that's $75. Then they've also got to purchase food for all the guests. So how much can the family spend on food per guest if there are 40 guests? So on top of the $75, we have 40 guests we're going to spend an unknown amount on for food. So 40 times the amount we're going to spend on them for food plus 75 for the party room has to total less than or equal to $575. So now that we've got the equation written, we can follow the steps. Big fraction? Nope. Distribute? Nope. Variables on both sides? Nope. So we need to move the constant away from the term of the variable. So we'll subtract 75 from both sides. That gives us 40x is less than or equal to 500. Then they're doing 40 times x, so we do the opposite of times. We divide both sides by 40. We get x is less than or equal to, I think it's 1250. Let me double check that just a second, but I think it's 1250 per person. See if my memory was correct on that. 500 divided by 40. Yep, 1250. So they can spend up to $12.50 per person regarding food for this party. Okay, 4 more. So this is relatively basic, but it's doing an inequality. So we did all equations except for the last one. So like 1 through 4 were all equations. But 7 is similar to number 1 and number 2 in style, except it's an inequality. So we look and we say, is there a big fraction? Nope. Do we need to distribute? Nope. Are there variables on both sides? No. So we're down to step 4, which is to move the constant away from the variable. So there's the variable, so I'll need to add 12 to both sides, because that's the opposite of subtracting. 6 plus 12 is 18. They have 4 times x, so we do the opposite of times, we divide. We get 18 over 4, which you can, greater than, my fault. You can reduce that to 9/2, that answer's good. Or if you plug that in the calculator and get the decimal 4.5, that's also fine. So both of these are equally good answers. Okay, number 8, there's no big fraction, step 1. No distribution, step 2. There's not variables on both sides, so step 3. So we get down to step 4, which says move the constant away from the variable term. So we need to do the opposite of subtracting 15. We need to add 15 to both sides. Negative 8 plus 15 is positive 7. Then we have t divided by 4, so we want to do the opposite and multiply both sides by 4. So the 4's cancel because 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 times 7 is 28, so we get 28 is less than t. Finally, I had that step 1 about the big fraction and it hasn't come up yet, but lo and behold, here it is. So number 9, is there a big fraction? Yes, there is. This entire side is a fraction. So our first step before we do anything else is to multiply both sides by the denominator. Remember, denominator is just a big word for the bottom of the fraction. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 cancels out, leaving just w plus 4. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Is there any distribution? Nope, that's step 2. Are variables on both sides? Nope, that's step 3. Step 4, we need to move the constant away from that. They were adding 4, so we do the opposite, we subtract 4. And there's nothing to multiply or divide, so we are actually finished. That time we didn't even have to do step 5. Okay, last one, number 10. Is there a big fraction? Yes. So our first step is to multiply both sides by the denominator. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. That leaves just the numerator at the top of the fraction, negative 2 plus x. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Now I want to pause here. When you do multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to flip the inequality sign. But it's only when that's what you're doing to both sides. So yes, there's a negative here, but we're not multiplying both sides by negative 4. We're multiplying both sides by positive 3. So since we're multiplying both sides by a positive number, we do not have to flip the inequality. Okay, there's no distribution to do. There are not variables on both sides, so we need to move the constant, the negative 2, away from the variable. It's a negative 2, so we need to add 2 to get rid of it. Negative 12 plus 2 is negative 10. So negative 10 is greater than x. And there's nothing to multiply or divide, so we're finished. So make sure, as you're working on this, you get these 5 steps in your brain and check through them as you're going through these problems.